The cleaning cart rattled down the corridor as Marcus Webb pushed it through the dim hallways of Zenith 7 Station. His reflection in the polished metal walls showed a tired middle-aged man in a gray maintenance uniform, just finishing another 12-hour shift. Around him, beings from across the galaxy hurried past without a glance. A towering Axiom scholar brushed by, her 6 arms carrying data tablets. 2 Dracon warriors stomped past in heavy armor, their reptilian faces locked in stern conversation. None of them noticed the human janitor. Marcus did not mind. He had learned long ago that being invisible had its advantages. For 3 years he had cleaned these halls, emptied trash bins, and polished floors while the important people of the galaxy went about their important business. The pay was decent and the work was honest. That was enough. Tonight he had one last task before clocking out. The Sanctum of Echoes needed cleaning. Most janitors avoided that room. It was cold, unnaturally quiet, and filled with ancient relics that made the skin crawl. But Marcus found it peaceful. No one bothered him there. He pushed through the heavy doors into the circular chamber. 7 crystalline stones, each the size of a human torso, stood arranged in a perfect circle at the room's center. They were dull gray, seemingly lifeless, but Marcus always felt something when he entered this room. A presence. A waiting. The Kuthara stones they were called. Ancient beyond measure. The information plaques said they were older than any living civilization in the galaxy. Scholars came to study them, to scan them, to puzzle over their purpose. None had ever succeeded in learning their secrets. The stones simply sat there, decade after decade, refusing to respond to anyone or anything. Marcus began his routine. He swept the outer edges of the room first, collecting the dust that somehow always accumulated despite the station's air filtration systems. He hummed an old song from Earth as he worked, something his mother used to sing. The sound echoed strangely in the chamber. As he swept closer to the stone circle, his mind wandered. He thought about his daughter back on Earth, now graduating from university. He thought about the message she had sent last week, excited about her new job. She had asked when he was coming home. He had not known what to tell her. His broom accidentally bumped against one of the stones. Everything changed in an instant. The stone erupted with brilliant blue light, so bright that Marcus stumbled backward, dropping his broom. The light pulsed like a heartbeat, growing stronger with each throb. Then the stone beside it ignited with green fire. Then another blazed purple. Within seconds all 7 stones were ablaze with different colors, filling the chamber with a light show that hurt to look at directly. Marcus threw his arm over his eyes, his heart hammering in his chest. Alarms began shrieking throughout the station. He heard shouting in the corridors, the thunder of running feet. The doors burst open. High Priestess Velshera rushed in first, her orange robes billowing, her 6 arms spread wide in shock. Behind her came a flood of scientists, guards, and officials. They all froze at the doorway, staring at the impossible sight before them. The 7 Kuthara stones were fully active, their light filling every corner of the chamber. And in the center of that light stood Marcus Webb, human janitor, still holding his arm up to shield his eyes, looking just as confused and terrified as everyone else. Velshera's voice was barely a whisper, but in the sudden silence, everyone heard it. The stones have chosen. After 10,000 years of silence, they have chosen a keeper. A tall Dracon warrior pushed forward, his scaled face twisted in disgust. Impossible. That is just a human. A cleaner. The stones would never choose something so insignificant. Marcus slowly lowered his arm, squinting against the brilliant light. He wanted to explain that he had only been doing his job, that this was all a terrible mistake, that he should probably just go back to his quarters now. But the stones had other plans. The holding cell was small and cold. Marcus sat on the metal bench, still wearing his maintenance uniform, trying to make sense of the last 6 hours. Through the transparent wall he could see guards posted outside. Not to protect him, he realized. To keep him contained. They had dragged him from the sanctum immediately after the stones lit up. High Priestess Velshera had insisted he not be harmed, but the security team treated him like a bomb that might explode at any moment. Now he waited while the galaxy's greatest minds argued about what to do with him. On the other side of the station that argument was getting heated. The council chamber was packed with representatives from 24 species. Velshera stood at the center, her 6 arms gesturing as she tried to maintain order. The prophecy is clear, she said, her voice strained. When the Kuthara stones awaken, they have chosen their keeper. This has happened only 5 times in recorded history. We must honor the selection. Commander Crix slammed his clawed fist on the table. The Dracon warrior's eyes blazed with anger. Honor this insult? A human? They are children in the cosmic timeline. Their species barely left their own planet before we found them. The stones must be malfunctioning. The stones do not malfunction, Velshera replied firmly. A floating sphere drifted forward, lights flickering across its surface. The Viennir collective spoke through it in harmonic tones. We propose a deep scan of the human's neural pathways. Perhaps he contaminated the stones somehow. We must understand how this error occurred. He is not an error, a new voice interrupted. A young Lyrian woman stepped forward from the crowd. Dr. Thessa's silver skin shimmered under the chamber lights. I have been studying the historical records. Every previous keeper was chosen for reasons the selection committees could not initially understand. Perhaps we should ask why the stones chose him instead of assuming they made a mistake. Crick snorted. You defend him because your people value curiosity over strength. The stones should have chosen a warrior, not a floor sweeper. While they argued, Marcus received an unexpected visitor. Dr. Thessa appeared outside his cell, carrying a data tablet. The guard hesitated but allowed her through. Hello, Marcus Webb, she said, her voice surprisingly gentle. I am Dr. Thessa. I want to help you understand what is happening. Marcus looked up at her, exhausted. Can you start by explaining why touching a rock with my broom has ruined my life? Despite the tension, Thessa's lips curved into a small smile. The Kuthra stones are not just rocks. They are keys to something vast, ancient. The civilization that created them disappeared millions of years ago, but they left these artifacts behind. When the stones choose a keeper, it means something terrible is coming. Something that requires a protector. I am a janitor, Marcus said flatly. I clean floors. I empty trash. I am not a protector of anything except maybe the station's hygiene standards. Yet the stones chose you. Thessa sat down across from him. In 3 days you will undergo the trial of recognition. You must touch each stone individually and survive the mental connection. If you succeed, you will be confirmed as the keeper. If you fail, I die. Previous candidates have died, yes. But you have already touched one stone and survived. That is unprecedented. Before Marcus could respond, alarms blared again. The lights in the station flickered, then surged bright before dimming to emergency levels. Through the walls, they heard a deep thrumming sound that made their bones vibrate. Thessa checked her tablet, her silver face paling. The stones. They are pulsing again, stronger this time. The energy output is overloading our reactors. A guard burst into the cell area. Dr. Thessa, High Priestess Velshera demands the human be brought to the sanctum immediately. The stones are destabilizing. If we do not do something, they will tear the station apart. Marcus stood slowly, his legs shaky. I guess we do not have 3 days anymore. Thessa met his eyes. No. You face the trial now, ready or not. I am sorry. They rushed him through corridors filled with panicking aliens. Ahead, Marcus could see the sanctum doors and beyond them, 7 stones blazing like trapped stars waiting for him. The sanctum floor trembled beneath Marcus's feet as he entered. The 7 stones now pulsed in rhythm, their light so intense that everyone except Velshera had to wear protective visors. The High Priestess stood beside the circle, her orange robes whipping in an impossible wind that seemed to come from the stones themselves. Approach, she commanded. Touch each stone in sequence. Survive the connection. Prove you are worthy or die trying. Marcus walked forward on unsteady legs. His hands were sweating. Behind him, Dr. Thessa watched from the doorway, her silver face tight with worry. Commander Crick stood beside her, arms crossed, clearly expecting the human to fail. The first stone was blue. Marcus reached out with a shaking hand and pressed his palm against its smooth surface. The world exploded. Suddenly Marcus was no longer in the sanctum. He stood on a planet he did not recognize, watching a civilization of beings made of pure light construct massive towers that reached into space. The Kuthra he somehow knew. The first civilization. He watched them seed life across 1,000 worlds. He watched them build the network of stones. He watched them create wonders that made modern technology look like children's toys. Then he watched them die. Something came from the dark space between galaxies. Something that consumed reality itself. The silence, they called it in their final moments. The Kuthra threw everything they had against it. Their weapons were useless. Their science meant nothing. The silence simply erased them, slowly, completely, as if they had never existed. Marcus gasped and pulled his hand back. He was in the sanctum again, on his knees, tears streaming down his face. He had just witnessed the death of an entire civilization in the space of a heartbeat. Continue, Velshera said, her voice softer now. There are 6 more stones. 6 more truths. Over the next hour, Marcus touched each stone. Each one showed him a different piece of the puzzle. He saw the 5 previous keepers, heroes from the galaxy's greatest civilizations. He watched each one try to activate the ancient network. He watched each one fail. He watched each one die, burned out by power they could not control. The final stone showed him why he had been chosen. The vision was simple but clear. The Kuthara had built their network with complexity, with certainty, with absolute knowledge. But the silence fed on those things. It consumed complexity. It devoured certainty. Every previous keeper had failed because they approached the problem like masters, like conquerors, like heroes. The stones did not need a hero. They needed someone who understood uncertainty. Someone who accepted that he did not have all the answers. Someone who had spent years making order from chaos without ego or pride. Someone who knew how to clean up a mess without being noticed. They needed a janitor. Marcus pulled his hand away from the 7th stone and collapsed. The lights dimmed. The thrumming stopped. The station system stabilized. In the sudden silence, he could hear his own ragged breathing. Dr. Thessa rushed to his side, scanning him with her medical device. His neural pathways are completely reorganized. The stones have changed him at a fundamental level. Velshera nodded slowly. He has survived the trial. He is confirmed as the keeper. Commander Crick stepped forward, his face twisted with rage. This is madness. You would trust the galaxy's survival to this insignificant creature? I will not accept it. Before anyone could respond, every light in the station went dark. Emergency systems kicked in, bathing everything in red. An announcement echoed through the corridors in a dozen languages. Long-range sensors have detected spatial anomalies at the edge of the outer rim. Multiple star systems have gone dark. Unknown phenomenon spreading. All ships are advised to avoid sectors 17 through 23. Marcus pushed himself to his feet, his legs barely supporting him. Through his new connection to the stones he could feel it. The silence had returned. After millions of years, it had come back to finish what it started. And he, a 45-year-old janitor from Earth, was supposed to stop it. How long do we have? He asked quietly. Velshera checked her data stream. At current speed it will reach the core systems in 6 weeks. Marcus nodded. Then we better get started. The salvaged cargo ship was not much to look at. Its hull was patched in 3 places, the engines coughed when they started, and the life support system made concerning noises every few hours. Marcus had insisted on renaming it the Dustpan, which made Dr. Thessa shake her head in disbelief. We are flying across the galaxy to save civilization, and you name our ship after a cleaning tool? She asked as they prepared for departure. Marcus checked the navigation console, still learning how to use the Kuthara knowledge now flowing through his mind. If this works, I will be doing the biggest cleanup job in history. Name fits. Their crew was small. Dr. Thessa had volunteered immediately, her scientific curiosity overriding her sense of self-preservation. Torv, a massive security officer with gray skin and 4 eyes, joined because he believed in following duty above politics. 3 other specialists rounded out the team, each one rejected by their own people for daring to support a human keeper. Their mission was desperate. Marcus had to travel to 6 ancient Kuthara temples scattered across the galaxy. Each temple held a node that needed activation. Only when all 6 were online could the network fully power up and potentially stop the silence. The first temple was on a frozen moon in neutral territory. They landed in howling winds and temperatures cold enough to freeze metal. Marcus, protected by the strange energy the stones had given him, walked through the blizzard to a structure half buried in ice. Inside, the temple came alive at his touch. Holographic displays activated, showing star maps millions of years old. But the activation required a test. The temple filled with visions of his failures, his regrets, every mistake he had ever made. His divorce. The years he had missed watching his daughter grow up. Every time he had chosen work over family, safety over courage. Marcus endured it. He had learned long ago that running from your failures only made them stronger. He faced each memory, accepted it, and moved forward. The temple node activated with a pulse of blue light. 1 down, he said as they returned to the ship. 5 to go. But the silence was not waiting patiently. Reports came in daily. Entire colonies were vanishing. Ships that ventured too close to the affected zones simply disappeared, erased from existence as if they had never been. The galaxy was panicking. Some species were fleeing to the far edges of known space. Others were building massive fleets, convinced they could fight. Commander Crix was among those preparing for war. His fleet of 200 Dracon warships positioned themselves at the edge of the affected zone, weapons charged and ready. The second and third temples tested Marcus in different ways. One filled with physical pain that would have killed a normal person. Another trapped him in illusions designed to break his sense of identity. Each time, Marcus survived by accepting rather than fighting. His team began to understand why the stones had chosen him. Where others would have tried to conquer these challenges, Marcus simply endured them with quiet determination. By the time they reached the fourth temple, the silence had consumed a quarter of the outer rim. Billions were dead or displaced. The Galactic Council had collapsed as each species looked to its own survival. The fourth temple sat on an asteroid in Dracon territory. As the dustpan approached, Crix's flagship intercepted them. "Human," Crix's voice crackled over the communication system. "You have failed. The silence advances. I am taking command of this mission. Surrender the stone fragments you carry, or I will destroy your ship." Marcus looked at his crew. Torv was already at the weapons console, knowing they could not win a fight. Thessa was calculating jump coordinates for an escape that might not work. "Commander," Marcus replied calmly, "if you want to help, escort us to the temple. If you want to fight, you will have to shoot us down. But know that if you do, the galaxy dies." Crix's laugh was bitter. "The galaxy is already dying, human. At least I will die like a warrior, not a coward hiding behind ancient superstition." The communication cut off. Crix's fleet turned away from them, heading directly toward the silence at full speed. Marcus watched them go, knowing what would happen. 30 seconds later, sensors showed the entire fleet simply vanish. 200 ships. Thousands of warriors. Gone in an instant. The silence had fed well. The sixth temple was inside the celestial archives itself, hidden beneath the sanctum all along. Marcus stood in the ancient chamber deep below the station as the silence consumed the space outside. Through the walls, he could hear metal groaning, reality itself breaking apart as the entity arrived. The dustpan had barely made it back. Half the station had already been evacuated. Those who remained were either too stubborn to leave or had nowhere else to go. Dr. Thessa worked frantically at a console, trying to stabilize the temple's power grid. Torv guarded the entrance, though they all knew no weapon could stop what was coming. 5 temples are online, Thessa reported, her silver hands shaking. But the network is incomplete. It needs all 6 to activate fully. Marcus placed his hands on the final control panel. Through his connection to the stones, he could feel the network awakening. 5 points of light across the galaxy, all connected, all waiting for the last piece. But something was wrong. The ancient Kuthara had designed this as a weapon. A reality bomb meant to erase the silence from existence. Marcus could feel the destructive power building, ready to unleash. It would work, he realized. It would destroy the silence completely. It would also tear a hole in space-time that would consume half the galaxy in the process. "That is why they all failed," Marcus whispered. "The previous keepers saw what the weapon would do. They could not bring themselves to pay that price." Above them, the silence reached the station. Sections of Zenith 7 simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed, not damaged. Just gone as if they had never been built. The entity was feeding, consuming complexity and certainty, erasing the organized matter and energy of the universe. Thessa looked at Marcus with despair in her eyes. "We cannot activate it. The cost is too high." Marcus closed his eyes. In his mind he saw his daughter back on Earth. He saw billions of lives across thousands of worlds. He saw everything that would be lost if the silence continued. He saw everything that would be lost if he activated the weapon. Then he remembered something. A lesson from his first day as a janitor decades ago. His supervisor had told him, the best way to deal with a mess is not always to fight it. Sometimes you just need to make it irrelevant. Marcus opened his eyes. "I am not going to activate the weapon." "What?" Thessa stared at him. "Then what will you do?" "My job." Marcus smiled despite the terror around them. "I am a janitor. I clean. And you do not clean up a mess by creating a bigger mess." He placed both hands on the control panel and reached out through the network. But instead of triggering the weapon system, he did something the Kuthara had never considered. He reversed it. The stones had been built to create absolute certainty, to impose perfect order on reality. That was what made them powerful. That was also what made the silence able to feed on them. Marcus understood something the ancient civilization had not. You do not fight chaos with order. You do not fight certainty with more certainty. You fight it with humble acceptance. Through the network, Marcus introduced quantum uncertainty into the fabric of space itself. Not destruction. Not creation. Just simple, fundamental uncertainty. The mathematical possibility that things might be different than they appeared. The silence, built to consume complexity and certainty, suddenly found nothing to feed on. It could not erase what was uncertain. It could not consume what refused to be defined. Like a fire starved of oxygen, it began to dissipate. The cost was immense. The network burned out instantly. The temple around Marcus crumbled. The 7 Kuthara stones, ancient beyond measure, cracked and turned to dust. Marcus felt the cosmic power drain from him like water from a broken cup. But it worked. The silence faded. Not destroyed but rendered irrelevant. The sections of the station it had consumed were gone forever, but the spreading stopped. The galaxy was saved. Marcus collapsed. Dr. Thessa caught him before he hit the ground. "You did it," she whispered. "You actually did it." "No," Marcus corrected weakly. "I just cleaned up the mess." 3 months later, Marcus pushed a cleaning cart through the rebuilt sections of Zenith 7. He wore the same gray maintenance uniform. He swept the same floors. Around him, aliens of a dozen species walked past, most never knowing the quiet man who had saved them all. Dr. Thessa's report had been published. Most dismissed it as mythology. Some governments classified it. A few scholars debated its accuracy. The galaxy moved on as it always did. Marcus did not mind being forgotten. He had a job to do and he did it well. That was enough. In his pocket, a small fragment of one of the stones glowed faintly. He could still feel it sometimes, a whisper of connection to something vast and ancient. The power was gone, but the memory remained. He smiled as he swept, humming an old song from Earth, noticed by no one. Exactly as he preferred it.